Come on in. How was the travel in? Everyone get here safely? Is it hot enough for you? All right. So, first of all, thank you all for coming. I'm Joe Lautner. I run the Tech Home Advisors Business Advisory Group for AE Ventures, and we help suppliers develop strategies to be better at delivering you their products. I am the track chair for the luxury custom home builder sessions, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the organization of them and sort of a theme that's running through. It's really about getting tech right. And you've all embraced it. You all know your clients want it. You're all engaged in some way or the other. And we just want to double down on ways to get early ideation, early design, keep your schedule smooth, keep the pricing right, limit change orders. And where tech is going is all over the house. So it's just becoming more important than ever. That's what we're going to talk about today, is about the ideation and the design. So integrating tech, home design, and the home ownership experience. We're going to talk about MEPT planning, and also about ongoing maintenance of these things. Tomorrow morning, bright and early, it's going to be a little touchy feeling with tech in the wellness wheel. And we're going to do some work together on this topic. I'll set it up, and then we're going to break into some groups, and we're going to come up with some work together. And then tomorrow afternoon, we have the Lux Tech Book Idea. And this is something we're trying. We basically collected a bunch of examples of technology in high-end custom homes, really just to show you an overview of things. A lot of you will probably be very familiar with some of the concepts. Hopefully there's some new ones in there. And it's meant to give you a little bit of just enough confidence to have seen something done. So you're all here, you all engage with your clients. And so it's about being able to talk to your clients comfortably about how to approach certain requirements or designs or design/technology integration goals. Then we have form follows function. And we actually did a session right before this with the sponsors, with BDX, and we talked about the shift to digitization. And certainly the high volume multifamily builders have made this move, and we think there's opportunity. Well, we know there's opportunity for you all to better help your clients visualize and see the options in the tech and the things you're putting into their house. The concept is that everybody starts with a blueprint. They look at the four walls, they look at the design, and at some points they shift from what the space is to what they're going to do in the space. And the digital marketing, the digital visualization are ways to get them to think about, I'm going to entertain in this space, I'm going to cook, I'm going to have dinner, I'm going to sleep, whatever that is that they're doing in this space, let's get them thinking about it early so we can then shift to this ideation, getting everything on the plans, and keep that schedule moving. And then lastly is we're going to see a remote demo of a showroom that really focuses on natural lighting and natural light management through shades and technology. So we want to help you just sort of double down on the tech, figure out how to integrate it more with your partners. And with that, we're going to shift over to what we're talking about this afternoon. So I think I'm going to need that just to start. And so I'm actually going to just hand it right over to Sean. Sean is our sponsor for this with Bravis, and he's going to lead us through a process that he offers builders. And we have Rich Lang from Bayview, who actually works with Sean. And through discussing this presentation, I was really impressed by the way that the relationship has evolved and the benefits to Rich that he'll share with you over implementing some of the processes that Sean will lay out, and what's in it for you, what's in it for your client, and ways that you can leverage this with your integration partners. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Sean.
Thank you.
And first of all, I want to thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. And so, Sean, take it away.
You made me pay to come here, but thank you anyway. Thanks. I'm going to stand up and move around a little bit. I don't like sitting still for long. I was on an airplane too long. I'm sure some of you have seen me speak before. I promise I won't say the same things I said the last time I was here. I did bring Rich along to help me drill home some of these points because as an integrator, I'm not sure builders always believe what I have to say. So I brought somebody here as a translator and to help me to verify some of these things, and he'll probably contradict a few things too. But I wanted to go through a few things and help you understand why to bring technology into the conversation sooner. I've been fighting this fight for going on 30 years now, and we've always sort of been the redheaded stepchild back in the corner when it comes to construction. I think everyone in this room is light years ahead of your competitors because you're actually at a tech event, which means you're interested in talking about it. So I'm very interested to talk to you about it, and I'm excited about this presentation today. You don't have to read all those things because we're going to talk about them today, but Joe made me summarize what we're going to go over today. Just soak that in for a minute. All right, so I want to give you first an idea of what it feels like to be an integrator. So you've got a wealthy client. They have an idea about building a really nice home. They typically hire an architect. And this is how integrators think of builders, by the way. Once the architect's hired, they've created this incredible set of plans. They built an instruction manual for you guys to build these beautiful homes. So you don't really have to do anything, right? So you get this set of drawings. It's a step-by-step manual, what you're supposed to do. You hire all your subcontractors. They do all the work. You're just sort of directing the trade there. And then that's us sitting there in the corner waiting for you guys to call us. But I'm making fun of it. I'm making light of it. I realize that your job is very difficult. But ours is equally complex. That's what I want to get across to you today. So all the organization, all the planning, all the time you guys spend developing the processes to build your homes, to get them from concept through foundation, under a roof, and having a client move in. We do similar things as an integrator. So you may or may not know, but I'll do my little quick Brabus commercial. We're a national integrator. We're the largest residential integrator in the country. And one of the reasons we did that was so we could build a better design and engineering department. And we did that because we believe that design and engineering is the root of all these things. So if you look at this horrible diagram that I put together, you notice that there's a client with an idea, and there's an architect or a design team building that idea. The only difference between this diagram and what an integrator does is we actually have to follow that process all the way through. So we're truly a design-build organization where we take that client input, we generate designs, we create engineering documents, we implement that, and then we service and support it afterwards. So we're not very different from contractors. We're still sitting down in the bottom corner there, but I think we're trying to elevate our image in the marketplace now. Rich, do you have anything to say about that?
Nailed it.
Okay, thank you. See, that's what he's here for. Real quick, just the evolution of technology in the home, and I think these pictures are kind of interesting. So I found a picture from back in the 80s. If you look at the far left of the screen, that photograph shows you, anybody ever do this in a house you built, where you cut out the cabinet face around the components? No one? Damn, I must be the oldest guy in the room. So we did some awesome jobs like this, and it looked really cool, but as soon as you had to replace a component, you had to get the cabinet maker back in to rebuild the whole front of the cabinet. That was an old tube-style TV. We went to plasma. The plasma that you see in that middle picture was probably $20,000 at the time, and it's probably a 43-inch or 42-inch plasma. And now, when we integrate, we're not just doing TVs and VCRs and DVD players. It's lighting and shading and temperature and fire features and water features and motorized bug screens and all the things that you're going to learn about at this event this week. So one of the things I do want to talk about, and this is something Rich and I have had many, many years to do, before you get involved with a client, before you get involved with a project, is you want to get involved with an integrator. Anybody here have an integrator they partner with on a regular basis? Good. The rest of you, my cards are on the back. If you don't, and if you haven't, I suggest that you do. If you've got relationships, if there's someone in your marketplace that you respect, if they've got a good reputation, if you've worked with them before, if you've got an understanding of what their capabilities are, if you've vetted them through past projects or past clients, build that relationship. And there's a lot of good reasons to do that. Number one is integrated projects are really complex. So in a complex project, you've got to decide who's going to be involved in that process. And I think, Rich, do you want to take it from there, like who you have to get involved?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit about Bayview Builders. We are based in Annapolis, Maryland. We do about 14 custom homes a year. Most of our schedules range from 12 to 16 months long. And it's real important for us to make sure that we don't get off schedule, which is, I'm not going to get into the challenges of today's landscape, but you all know it. So every partner that we work with needs to be aligned with our vision And Sean's team is great about getting in early and trying to work with the client and understand their needs. But most importantly, Sean knows where our pinch points are, and Sean knows what's going to get us off track and ultimately cost us money. So it's important for him to understand what's important to us, and I think as a group they do a great job of figuring that out. So he isn't showing them shiny objects that either one they don't want or can't afford and causing us time delays, or overlooking things that are really important to them, which ultimately result in change orders. So you could have the best integrator in the world at your disposal, but if they're not aligned with your company culturally, it's not going to go well.
Right. So are there some things that you guys stay away from because you've said this is too much of a headache, or is that the process you went through, is talk about what we do want to talk to the clients about and what might stay away from?
I think it varies from builder to builder.
And client to client.
And client to client. But when you're pre-planning with a builder before you get to the client, there are going to be things, and every market's a little bit different, every home and every community is a little bit different. There are things you might not want to do. If you had a bad experience with outdoor bug screens because you got a windy environment, they blow them off the tracks all the time and it causes you callbacks and service fees and you don't want to deal with it, have that conversation with your integrator before the client sits down and says, hey, I want bug screens, and now you're obligated to put these things in, and you've got a nightmare headed your direction. I do want to mention that there's a couple things, cost, profitability, and marketing on there. So one of the conversations you want to have with your integrator is, what is all this going to cost me as a builder? So what are my additional expenses? So if you're going to put shades in, what do I have to do? I've got to frame pockets for them. If you're going to put in lighting controls, what do I have to do? I have to pay my electrician to run extra wiring or to change his wiring plan or to learn what he needs to do. All these devices that might go into a system are going to potentially cost you money, which sounds like a bad thing, but you have the opportunity to turn it into a positive. So you can actually charge for the services that you're providing, as long as you do a good job of explaining what those services are. And marketing, I think everybody who doesn't market their integration with their tech company and how they can bring technology into the home along with the other systems they're providing is missing an opportunity. There was a marketing session here before. I don't know if you guys were in that one or not. I'm sure there's probably going to be plenty more of those. But if you're not talking about what a great job you do of working with tech, you're missing an opportunity to promote your company and also to make some extra money. This is a slide stolen from our solutions guide. Many of you are going to be in a boardroom session from us right after this, so you get to hear from me all over again. But I will share our solutions guide with you there. I've got copies of them for everybody. This is basically our process narrowed down or boiled down to 5 steps. There's really more than 5, but we sort of consolidated it so it all fits on one page, nice and pretty. But what we do traditionally is a discovery meeting with your client after we've gotten the agreement with you as the builder. So that's sort of the process where we figure out what your customer wants. And we're playing in your sandbox now. So hopefully you've already defined with us, the integrator, what you're willing to do, what you're capable of doing, what you want to do. And we design that with your customers. Then we go ahead and go through developing a scope of work and putting a budget together. From there, we go into the design and engineering process, and I'll break out design and engineering separately momentarily, and then the implementation and the service and support. So those are all things we're going to touch on today. So this is a big deal. Rich, do you want to take this one? Because I know that you've got a pretty solid understanding of this too.
So, I'm sure everybody in this room has had an experience where a client's told them that they're not interested in lighting controls, they're not interested in audio, they don't want any local area networks, and next thing you know, you get to the rough-in phase and you're doing your electrical walk. At Bayview, we try to do our electrical walk first. We mount all of our housings and our blue boxes, and that way the plumbers and the mechanical guys know where not to go, hopefully, stay out of those bays. And that's, of course, coordinated with all of our framing. And then the client says, oh, I was over at a buddy's house the other day and I really enjoyed having music in every room, or I really enjoyed the fact that they had shades that could go up and down on the remote control, or he's really impressed with power control, like clean power cleansing and this and that. And it's like, if you're having that conversation at that point, you missed the boat. So what we try to do, and I think Sean's going to say it a few more times, and Joe certainly brought it up, is we've kind of changed the acronym from MEP to MEPT. And the minute we sign a contract with clients, or in some cases a pre-construction agreement or a professional services agreement, that lingo is hitting them in the forehead, because in our world, we need to know if you're going to do shades, if you're going to do lighting control, if you're going to do distributed audio, before we even send the drawings to the truss company. Because if we're doing shade pockets and nobody's thought about it, and we've got $20,000 worth of floor trusses that have already been designed and installed, we got a problem. So you can't, if you want to do yourself one favor, it's to start talking about this stuff early. And when the client says it's not a big deal, make up some horror stories, or call me and I'll give them some horror stories. Yeah. But it gets expensive, and not only cost to correct, but in delay. So.
And keep in mind that the onus is not on you entirely to educate your customers, right? So there's an architectural set of drawings right there. I spend a lot of my time, at least 2 to 3 days a week, doing lunch and learns with architectural firms, trying to explain to them how to get this rolled into their set of drawings. So if you have an architect that you work with, or a series of architects that you work with who are not doing technology plans for you, I would encourage them to do that. And companies like mine, companies like mine will often work with architects at little to no cost. We want to be the specifier. We want our products specified in early. We want them in the plans. We want them in the conversations. So if you have the opportunity to bring an architect in to meet your integrator, it's a really, really good combination. And then you get these drawings with all your stuff on it already. Pre-construction. This is another image from our solutions guide, like I mentioned, I'm going to share with you later. Educating the client. We're doing everything we can to help you do that. So you're going to see our 72-page solutions guide, which is basically a nice little catalog and a pretty menu explaining everything that we offer. Not everything, but almost everything that we offer to a consumer in terms of technology. We request that everyone that meet with us, meet with our builders, at least thumb through this guide before they sit down with us. It saves them a tremendous amount of time. It saves us a tremendous amount of time. And we don't have to explain all these various technologies over and over and over again. And usually they can narrow down their decisions pretty quickly once they've seen that. It's really important also to include the other trades in these conversations. So we don't work in a bubble, as I'm sure you know. If you've worked in an integrator before, the electrician's involved, sometimes the plumber's involved, the HVAC contractor is typically involved, the framers and the trim carpenters are involved, the cabinet makers, the landscape contractors. I'm probably forgetting a couple, but everyone's got to be involved in this. If you don't bring them into the conversation, they don't know what they don't know. It doesn't make sense for the electrician to run trenches outside in the landscape, and the landscape contractor to run trenches for his irrigation system, and the low voltage guy to run low voltage conduit in the ground. Everybody cuts everybody else's pipe and their wires, and next thing you know, you've got this mix of splices in the front yard or backyard. So bring those contractors in and let your integrator do that. It's an integrator's responsibility to coordinate all these efforts. You don't have to do it. You need to be there for the meetings. You probably need to show up and listen, but you don't necessarily have to plan, and let your integrator do that or expect them to do that. And then plan for the division of responsibility. Who's responsible for everything? If your integrator is not an electrical contractor, who's doing the lighting control installation? Is the electrician doing that? Does he know that? Because he's not real happy when he finds out after the fact, after he's already given you a bid, you've already pushed that bid off to the customer. They're expecting a number, and the electrician now realizes he's got to run everything back down to the basement. Makes for an unhappy electrical contractor, makes for a bad relationship between the electrical contractor and the integrator, and makes for problems between you and your electrical contractor. Anything to add to that?
Nope, spot on.
Nailed it again.
I guess if I had one thing to say is that, I'm sure all of you have some level of lighting design going on in your projects, whether the architects are doing it or the interior designers, or you're hiring a lighting specialist. That's really the time to include your integrator, because that's really where all of this emanates from, I would say. So it's nothing really new to your process. It's just one more box to check on the front end of the job.
How many out there have lighting control in over half their projects? Over half. Okay. I know one of the tactics some folks that I've worked with in the past have is that they sort of set up the example if someone's never lived with lighting control, and they talk about the long bank of lights. And then as they start doing the lighting design, then they start to see that. And then they said, oh, what was that conversation we had about replacing that with one keypad? So again, early ideation plants seeds that then can turn into a want or a need early and get it on the plans.
Yeah. Thanks for the segue. If you're going to remember anything from this, other than how great these guys look sitting up here, remember this slide. And the reason I say that, and the reason the first item there is in bold, is because you should start with lighting. Anybody who's going to be in our boardroom session after this, I'll explain in detail why. But lighting is the longest lead time. It's the most important. It's the most critical. And it's the thing that causes the most headaches if you don't get it right in the beginning. You want to tell the story? Or should I? You tell the story.
The story Sean's referring to is we had a client that was a former engineer, which never really goes away, who decided that wasn't challenging enough, so he became a patent attorney. And he really likes to analyze things, like overly analyze things. He was also one of the guys that said, you know, we don't need lighting control, or we don't need audio. And I mean, what was the package you ended up putting together? Like over $100,000 worth of stuff with, oh, by the ways. And the reality is, after he did all of his research and he came back to us and he's like, I want to go with this product. And it was way too late. We had 4 more weeks to make this decision, and it was a 16-week lead time on the lights that he wanted. And so unfortunately, I mean, that's a case study in poor client expectation management on my side. But the reality is we went from having a really happy client to a really disappointed client, not because we didn't do our job, but because I didn't give him enough time to properly analyze where I knew he was going to go. I needed to read his mind 4 months in advance and get Sean involved with him a little bit earlier. I mean, at the end of the day, he's still going to have a great product, but you're never going to get rid of that taste of, I wish I had.
Yep. So
do yourselves a favor, and to Sean's point, start earlier.
It's a really great example of why we have to get started sooner. This client actually found a lighting product that he thought he liked, was introduced to some new things when he met with me and with my company, decided he liked that better, and the cost was actually better, but couldn't go down that road, partly because of supply chain issues. Right now, we couldn't get the products fast enough, but it didn't give enough time to design and implement because we held up the construction schedule, and that's never good for anybody.
So it wasn't entirely construction schedule related. I mean, we can field that, but they also had a loan, and there was a maturation date on the construction loan. So that was really the hurdle that nipped it.
Yeah. So lighting is not just lighting controls anymore from the integrator standpoint. Your integrators are going to be involved in the lighting design. And like I said, we'll have another session where we talk about that a little bit more. But it is by far the thing to start with. And lighting always trickles down into the other things. When you start talking about lighting fixtures, then you start talking about lighting controls. When you start talking about lighting controls, you start talking about motorized shades. You talk about motorized shades, you start talking about motorized shading pockets, and all the things that sort of cascade off of that concept. So I would always start there, follow into window treatments. And then the next 2 things are pretty important. Anybody who's heard me speak before has heard me say this. This is what I shout from the mountaintops. There are 2 things that can make a system go really, really badly. Bad power and an unreliable network. And it sounds like it's pretty simple, right? If you've got a good utility in your area, the power, hey, it's on most of the time. That sounds like good power to me. It's not. Trust me when I tell you that it's not. If you've got a processor that locks up a cable box that freezes, an AV system that doesn't do what it's supposed to do, 99 times out of 100, one of 2 problems is causing that. Bad power, either an undervoltage or overvoltage situation, dirty power and noise on the power lines, or a bad network, and the components aren't communicating with one another. So if you don't invest in those 2 things, it's like building a house without a foundation. You would never build a house without a solid foundation, never pass inspection without it. But guess what? Every integrator can install all this stuff without a network because the cable company provides one, or without any kind of power conditioning or control because the utility provides that. That's a really, really bad way to go on a big system, especially if you're going to be the one getting the phone call and stuff doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Consider yourself warned. The next thing is where everybody usually starts, and it's the 5th bullet point. 5th bullet point on the list, which is picking out the fun stuff. So whenever you talk about an integrator with a client, most people think the gigantic TVs and the video projectors, the awesome speakers, the great sound systems, the stuff out by the pool, maybe some cool lighting keypads, some great security devices. I can check my cameras from my phone. All this cool technology on my phone to operate all that stuff, all these great macros and fun stuff I can show my friends how cool my house is. I can shut off my water valves from China if I wanted to. But that stuff comes 5th on the list. All that stuff is supported by the things beyond it. So that's the thing that we usually start with, and that's why we usually get called to the party late, which is why we're here today, to talk to you about why you get there early. And the benefits of the control system. If you talk to if I was to ask you what your integrators work with, who would say Crestron in this room? Savant? Elan? Control 4? All right, so you've all got a control system you're married to. My advice to you is stop. Sorry, Joe.
It's
the
the old days.
the control system is supposed to fit the rest of the stuff. That's why I have it last on this list. So this list is usually turned upside down by most integrators, and it has been in the past. And it's out of necessity because that's the way the client thinks. So they think about their Crestron or their Control 4 or their Elan or their Savant, their Lutron. They want that system because they all the cool things they can do, but they haven't decided what they want yet. So start with this list in this direction, figure out what you're doing first, and then decide which control system makes the most sense and how it's going to operate. And then make that call and do that design and engineering. So you see this says design at the top and not engineering. This is just the conversations with the customer. We haven't gotten into engineering yet because that's next. Well, actually, that's the lighting pictures. Engineering. This is it's a loaded slide, and if you were here last year, you saw me show all the engineering documents that we provide. Once the design's done, we have to talk about how we're going to put it all together. So this is like a set of architectural plans. That happens to be a wiring diagram there, but you'll see other things. You'll see network diagrams with heat maps. You'll see lighting and shading control diagrams. You'll see lighting plans, full lighting plans, landscape lighting plans, landscape audio plans, network plans, security and surveillance. You can read the list. You don't need me to read that list. But once we have the go-ahead, we've got the design complete, the scope built, a budget together for the customer. They've said, you know what, these are the things that we want. We understand what they're going to do. We talk about what they're going to look like, and we know what they're going to cost. Then we go into engineering. And this is probably the tipping point. This is where we want to get as quickly as we can, and it's the hardest place to get because everybody's got to make a decision. And what are the two things that get cut at the end of the job if they run out of money? Tech is one. What's the other one?
Landscaping.
Boom, nailed it. We've done this before, haven't we? Yeah, so, and that's the unfortunate part. So they would never cut, well, I shouldn't say never cut any of the electric, but they don't cut electric, they don't cut plumbing, they don't cut mechanical. They still need heat, they still need air conditioning, they still need electric, they still need water. So they're going to include that, but they could cut tech out completely. And we're doing a disservice to anybody who builds a house in 2022 or 2023 that doesn't have a technology element to it. You're not going to build a house without some level of tech, especially not a custom home like you guys are building. It's pretty important. Anything you want to share there? Killing it. I mean, obviously killing it. So implementation, we should spend some time on. Working with the integrators, challenging. And Rich, I should probably let you take some of this. But we're talking about planning and project management with an integrator. So what happens once those engineering documents are done, and how do we manage that process with the builder and with an integrator? So I think some of the pitfalls are, the integrator wasn't aware that what the new trim package looks like, so the speakers are going to interfere with the crown molding that you put up. Or help me out here. What are some other examples of that?
I mean, there's a lot, and I think, honestly, most integrators undersell the complexity of what they're doing behind the scenes. I think clients have a very Amazon approach to things now. I mean, they feel like they can click a button and everything should just work. I mean, I've seen what Sean's team, and in full disclosure, I mean, we work with other integrators too. I mean, we try to align our trade partners with the client. And there's some clients that Sean's really good set up for, and there's other clients that there's other people that are better suited for that. But the reality is that when this conversation's happening, they don't really understand the level of complexity that's going on behind the scenes. And that's, again, another reason, and I know I'm continuing to drive this home, is to start this process early. Because if these guys are making hasty engineering decisions in order to meet my schedule, then I've failed them, because I know that my client's not going to get the highest quality or the most value of what these guys can bring to the table. So the more time that can be spent planning on the front end, I mean, you guys all know this, I'm preaching to the choir, the better the product will be on the back end, and that's unquestionable. So, there you have it.
When do you connect with the other subs if you're going to integrate smart kitchen features or healthy home ventilation, smart energy? I mean, where are the touch points and who quarterbacks those meetings?
At Bayview, we do. So about 2 years ago, when all of the supply chain issues started to emerge, we adopted a strategy with our trade partners, and some of you guys might do it. We call them pull plan meetings, where as soon as we break ground, we have a formal meeting with the MEP and T subcontractors, and we get everybody together. We put a bunch of paper on the walls, and we get commitments out of each one of those teams on when they're going to start, when they're going to finish, and what they need from each other. And that honestly is the most valuable part of that. I mean, anybody can mail in a schedule and say, I'm going to start on this date and I'm going to finish on the other date. But the benefit of the pull plan meetings that we do is twofold. One, they have the opportunity to say, hey, plumber, I'm going to need X, Y, and Z from you in order for me to put in my, valve controls or whatnot. Or, hey, electrician, I need you to have your service in place so that I can power up the temp heat. Or, hey, MEP, mechanical guy, I need your unit set by this date so I can wire them. And what emerges from that is the second part is accountability. Up until we started doing these things, all those conversations were in a vacuum. I would be talking to the plumber and getting commitments from him. I would be talking to the mechanical contractor, getting commitments from him. I would be talking to the fire sprinkler guy and getting commitments from him. But that's just between me and them. No one else in the room hears it. But when you put it up on a wall and everybody goes up there with their color marker and everyone writes down what they're going to do, instantly there's pure accountability. And we have found that to be one of the most valuable things that we've adopted since the pandemic started, and we'll never go back. And that's the point where Sean and his team can say, okay, if we're going to do power cleansing, I need X, Y, and Z from the electrician. If we're going to manage landscape lighting, then I need X, Y, and Z from the landscape contractor. Or if we're going to do smart thermostats, then I need you, HVAC contractor, to be on board with what my ultimate technology can do to work with your HVAC unit. And that's not always easy. Like, depending upon what controller you're using, there's limited thermostats that will work with that and the equipment we're putting in place. So we do a lot of geothermal work, so that even further kind of cuts back on the amount of controls that we can use. So it's just important to get everybody in the room and get the conversation going.
So when you have, when you're in the MEP process, the electrical, there are code that you need to fill or meet with outlets. But when you get the tech power requirements, whether it's a charging station on a table that's in the middle of a room and you need an outlet on the floor, you want outlets behind the TV, are you actually getting those requirements before the electrician bids, or is it typically, I'll give you the standard stuff and then is this an upgrade or an add-on?
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation that'll distract from Sean, but
But do you need his, you need his design before you can add that extra power?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for us, I mean, a lot of our work is cost plus percentage. So we, especially with the last 2 years, we've been given a lot of quote unquote estimates and then allowing the whole discussion to evolve over time. So in the case of any special requirements that weren't initially thought about, that's just a matter of things getting added in later. But more important is that they need to be documented so that everybody's on the same page.
I think the elephant in the room that we're not talking about is, so to Rich's point, there are milestones that we create. I didn't put the slide in with those on there, but we sort of look at what happens in the course of a project and what we need to do and how we need to coordinate. So you mentioned the HVAC contractor. I despise installing thermostats. And not because it's difficult or not because I don't know how or I don't want to, but when I install the thermostat, who gets the phone call when the heat doesn't work? The integrator. Well, actually, you probably do first, but then you call me because I put the thermostat in because it's got the Crestron name or the Savant name on it or the Lutron name on it. And most of the time, it's not necessarily a thermostat issue. It could be a communication issue, but it's probably an issue with the HVAC unit. So we like to give those thermostats to the HVAC contractor. But what I don't want to do is surprise them with, here's a box of thermostats and the client's moving in next week. Let's put these things in and turn it on, fire this thing up. So we do a whole spec and submittal package. And we ask that the HVAC contractor review those specs and submittals to make sure that what we're providing is going to work with the systems that they're integrating. And we want to do that as early as possible. But the big thing is change management or change order management. I'm sure it's a nightmare for you with all those disciplines. It's a nightmare for us as well. So I've yet to, in 30 years, had a job that finished as it started, meaning that everybody decided what they wanted at the beginning, and what we delivered was exactly what they talked about at the end. It never happens that way. So how we handle those changes throughout the process is really important. And if it was just us or just you handling those changes, it's not that bad. But as soon as somebody changes something that impacts the mechanical and the electric and the plumbing and the framing and the trim and the cabinetry and the millwork and everything else, everything kind of blows up in the middle of the process. So how do you manage that? And again, I'm going to point it back to your integrator again. I don't want to be responsible for it, but we're a general contractor for all the tech that goes in the house. The electrician's not going to handle it. The HVAC contractor's not going to handle it. Your plumber's certainly not going to do it. You don't want to do it. The architect doesn't want to deal with it. So it's back on us to manage those changes. So if you've got a good integrator, they should be able to design and engineer, they should be able to manage those changes for you too during this implementation process. If they don't, you end up with problems. You end up with expenses that are yours. And how many times have you gone to a client after a job's closed out and said, oh, by the way, here's the extra $7,500 you owe me for, and they say, for what? Well, because we forgot about this and you asked for that and the integrator sent me a bill 3 weeks after, 4 weeks after, 5 months after you moved into the house, and now I got to collect it from you because I got to pay them. It'd be great to avoid that. So lean on your integrator to do that. If they're good at what they do, they'll do that for you. Yeah?
Agreed.
Right.
The only thing I would add to that is Sean kind of talked about these service calls as a bad thing. They're not necessarily bad. I mean, when these clients make a commitment to this level of technology in their homes, you're married. I mean, it's never going to be perfect forever, and technology changes, and there's always going to be upgrades to the next greatest thing. And we look at it as an opportunity to stay in contact with our clients, whether it's through Sean's team or other trades. Our whole philosophy is any contact with the client should be a good thing. We are very focused. We do high performance luxury homes on the water in Annapolis, Maryland. I mean, we're not trying to be a regional builder. We're not trying to be something we're not. So even in today's technology, or with today's technology and marketing, we still get probably 90% of our work word of mouth. So our clients are rubbing elbows with what's hopefully our next client. And if we can stay top of mind on our clients' heads, then we know that when they're at that dinner party or they're at the yacht club or whatever it is that they're doing, they'll talk about us, and usually in a pretty good light. And sometimes the bad situations lead to the best opportunities. Like before I came down here, I was on a roof last night till 6 p.m. because a very modern home that we built with a very flat roof with an Ipe deck over all of it somehow sprung a leak. So, you know, at the end of that, we found it and we fixed it, and the client was thrilled. I mean, basically they had water coming through a recessed light on Mother's Day, which wasn't awesome, but we got back out there and we handled it, and, you know, that's what they remember. Unfortunately, they don't remember when things go flawlessly.
Exactly, fix the problem.
Right. So they remember we came out the next day and we fixed the problem. So, you know, I view Sean's contribution to what we do as an opportunity for constant contact.
Agreed. I'm going to go back a slide because it reminded me of something. We're going to jump into service and support since you just brought it up. But before we get there, these engineering documents are sort of living, breathing things, right? So we might put these together, and if you guys build big houses, they don't happen overnight. So if it's an 18-month or 2-year or 3-year process in some cases for some of the big custom homes we work on, the products that we specify may no longer be made or available or contemporary or current or whatever term you want to use. So they may get substituted along the way. So we have to constantly update these documents. If we service a project, if we add a new component, if we change out a wire, we move something to a different room, or we change out a device, we've got to update these plans to match. Because the service and support experience doesn't work if what we have drawn isn't what's built. Because the guy on the other end of the computer or the phone or the text message or the web chat, or however they reach out to us, doesn't have accurate information. He can't troubleshoot or diagnose what that issue might be. So it's really important that your integrator does that as well. So what I would suggest you do on your large custom projects, and I'm gonna put a caveat in there, not every client wants to pay for it. And that's probably the biggest problem for us, is if we can't get paid for our time to do this, we can't provide you with the best level of service and documentation. This stuff takes time. There's human beings involved in doing this. There's people in the field, there's people behind the computer, there's drawings being done. If the client's not willing to pay for that time to assemble these documents and assemble these drawings, we can't deliver the best experience possible. So sometimes we have to cut some corners because they don't want to pay for that and we don't finish these drawings, and it makes for a less than awesome service experience. So I think this is probably reserved for not necessarily your ultra high-end clients, but the ones who are very particular about how things are handled. And people understand that there's a cost for all of these things. If you want that level of service, that's what it's going to cost. If you want concierge level service, you pay for a concierge. If you want to buy a Porsche or a Ferrari, your oil changes are not going to be $19.99 at Jiffy Lube, right? It's kind of the same thing for the homes that you work on. I'm sure that Rich wasn't cheap for being up on a roof. Yeah. I don't know what it costs to get you up on a roof, but I can't even imagine that's expensive.
Just a little pride.
Yeah. But to have that level of service, it's something that people should pay for. And hopefully you're marketing yourselves as a high-end, high-performance custom builder. And with that comes an additional cost. And it's justified because you do a better job than your competitors do. I feel that we do the same. And I think that our costs are justified. And we'll give this package to the client at the end of the job. So they have all these things at their disposal. So when the cable guy comes and opens up that panel and wants to know what that wire is for, it might have a number on it instead of a name. But they can look at the engineering documents that are in a nice little binder by that panel and see exactly where that wire goes and what it was intended to be used for, what it's currently connected to, or what it's not connected to, it's not being used right now. All those things are important to the success of the project moving forward. It's a convenience issue for the client. So with that, support and maintenance, this is probably going to take a little while to get through. But I think it's really important. This is the after the sale piece. So assuming we knock all these other things out of the park, which none of the things we talked about are easy, right? So design and engineering, planning, implementation. Once we get this thing installed, it's like a vehicle again. You don't buy a car and never change the oil. You don't buy a car and never change the brake pads or the brakes or the tires. You don't go without a tune-up or shocks or suspension issues. You can't drive it forever and expect it to keep working forever without some sort of maintenance or upgrades or updates. Anybody update firmware on their smart TV recently? Okay. How many of you tried to do it with a control system? What if there's not a button on your Crestron remote that operates that firmware update on your TV? And you experience that? Anybody have a Crestron or a Savant system in their house? So picture this. You've got a client that just spent $450,000 on an integrated system, and your integrator is awesome, and you're an incredible builder, and you had an incredible experience, and there's something important on TV. Hockey fans, hockey playoffs, Caps game. It comes on tonight, and as soon as I turn on my TV, this message comes up on my big Samsung TV that says firmware update required, and it won't let me do anything until I hit the OK button. And that message stays there, blacking out my screen until I hit the OK button. My Crestron remote control wasn't programmed to operate the TV itself. That OK button on my TV remote is not anywhere in my Crestron system. What do I do? If I'm really handy, I reach behind the TV and feel around for that button and try and click the little button on the back of the TV. If not, I'm calling my builder or my integrator or both and screaming at the top of my lungs that I'm going to miss this game if you don't get out here and push this button for me. Those are the kinds of things, and those are the reasons that we need these support and maintenance agreements. Those are the simple things. What about when stuff breaks? What happens when stuff breaks? How do we know it's broken, and how do we fix it? So remote monitoring, maintenance, and service. One of the things that I'm most proud of inside Bravo is we built a 24/7 call center that does support and remote monitoring 2 ways. Well, 3 technically, but one of them is proactive service. One is reactive service. So the reactive service means that if you've got a problem, you pick up the phone, you send us an email, you send us a chat on our website, you send us a text message, and you get a technician who responds to you right away. If it's an email, it's going to take at least 10 minutes. Somebody's got to get it and read it and respond to you. If it's a phone call, we're going to answer the phone. And what we'll do is pull up all your system documentation. We'll pull up all our remote connectivity. We'll take a look at what's going on. We'll do our best to resolve your issue without running a truck out there. Sometimes it's a client that doesn't know what they're doing or hasn't used the system in a while or hasn't used that feature before and just needs to be talked through it. Sometimes there's actually something not right that needs to be serviced, diagnosed, replaced, reset, updated, fixed. The other option is for us to do it proactively. So with a proactively monitored system, we can actually keep an eye on all those devices. And when something isn't doing what it's supposed to do or it's offline, we get a message. And our call center gets that message, and they log in and they take a look and see what's going on. And usually they don't fix it right away. They're probably going to send the client a message and say, hey, Mr. Client, we're going to reboot your so-and-so, your TV, your audio system in case you happen to be watching it right now. We want to make sure you're aware and you give us the thumbs up before we do that. But we know that something's got to be changed, fixed, updated, or supported. We're going to let you know before we do that, and that way you don't have to worry about it. So we might fix your guest bedroom TV that you haven't used in 6 months, and you may never know it was a problem. app-based visibility for clients and builders. Joe, I know this is kind of near and dear to AE's heart. You guys have some people here, I think, that do some of these things. You want to touch on that real quick?
Well, I guess it's a question. We've talked about lifetime value of clients to builders, both custom builders and production builders. And, the as-built set of plans, manuals, paint colors, all the things that you've put into the house, how does the homeowner live with that? How do they know what paint color they need if they're going to upgrade? Or what is the as-built? What is the filter that you need to replace and when? And so the something that's been discussed over the last couple of years is what is the tool and who can provide the tool, and what value does the tool provide to a builder and a homeowner if you were able to capture all that information on an app. And it had all the information on the products, the manuals, the warranty, who to call for what, replacement parts, the consumables that are in all these products. And that's something that there are some folks here that have products for that, and Sean has been dabbling with it, and others have been dabbling with providing that digital warranty book. Do you all put your folders in all the literature in a binder? Is that what you do today? So is it a paper-based tool? Digital tool. So I think that's the question is that how valuable is that, so that the homeowners have that at their fingertips? And that's really what we're testing and encouraging folks to investigate.
Yeah, so we're working on a lot of different things now, but one of them is starting to work with those types of companies that want to pull it all into one spot. So we looked at it a lot of different ways, and one of the things that sort of occurred to me is that this shouldn't be our tool. I mean, it should be partially ours. We're going to put our name on it, but this should be your tool. This should be something that you can provide to your clients, that when they want to know who's going to fix their dishwasher, they know exactly where to go. If they want to know who's going to fix their AV system, they know exactly where to go and how to get it done. Some of those things are going to be email requests for service. They may not get a response for a day or a week or a month. Some of them are going to be better because they're going to come to a company like ours. We monitor those requests 24/7, and we get back to them within 10 minutes. Hopefully schedule something for them to get it serviced and maintained. But the idea being we want to do this. So I have this is a concept that we've been working on. I'm going to talk over it, and we'll talk over it. But this is, as you can imagine, an iPhone, and the idea being that someone's going to go ahead and click on the Bravas app, or whatever app we decide to call this, bring up information about their account, their system, the services that are available to them. We can use it as a marketing tool and a sales tool. If they have a service issue, they can describe in general what that service issue is, and then connect with the tech remotely. And this is kind of an interesting concept for us because of our size. We have about 400 or so employees across the country, and about 60% of those are technicians, which means we've got a lot. And just because we've got a client in Baltimore that's got a problem with the system doesn't mean a San Francisco technician can't help them out. So we're thinking of this, I hate to use their name, but an Uber concept for recruiting technicians into the conversation, which is, hey, service techs, it's after hours, your day job's over. If you want to be on call, be on call. Your phone's going to be in front of you. A client's got a request in another market for Bravas, or maybe in your market. You have access to all these documents and all this information we put together to engineer and design this system. You have all the client information inside of our database. You have remote connectivity to that system. So anybody can pick up that call and talk to that client and help them through this process. And it may be, I like the idea of it being an app versus a phone call, because if you've ever had an angry client call you in the middle of one of their parties, something's not working or doing what it's supposed to do, that's not a fun phone call to take. You don't want to be on the other end of that voice call, right? It would be a whole lot nicer if they sent you a text message or a chat message like this and said, hey, this isn't working, can you fix it? It's nicer for them too. So that customer can be in the middle of their conversation, say this isn't working right, pull up that app, type a quick message, put the phone down and take a look a little while later to say we're working on it, it's been resolved, we're rolling a truck, whatever the answer might be. And I think this is not just a great concept for Bravas as an integrator, I think it's a great concept for the home building industry in general, that we can dispatch help in various forms. It depends on what the problem is. But this gives you something that you can put in your hands, you can show your customers, and say, we do this and our competitors don't. So if you want to know why we build a better house, it looks better, it's sturdier, we put in better, better products and better materials, we have better carpenters, we have better, you can say that all day long. This is a real differentiator.
Hey, Sean, I've worked with some builders in the New England area that had property management or concierge property management features. A lot of the homes might be a second home, and they actually provide maintenance. Does anyone here have a division or a section of their business that does that? Okay. And so I kind of look at it as an extension. What do you offer?
So we don't market it. We only offer it to past clients. And just to your point, a lot of the homes that we build aren't occupied year round, whether this is the second home or they have a second home somewhere else. So, these homes need to be lived in, and you can't just shut off the water and walk away. So we can do as much as a weekly check, or we can do storm checks, or we have a checklist of services that we provide. I mean, we do everything from open and closed pools to checking gutters to power washing.
Irrigation.
Yeah, whatever it is, and it's 100% customized to the need of that specific client. And each year we put another 12 to 14 houses in the ground. So each year that portfolio of past projects grows. And to my earlier point about it's just another way to stay top of mind with these folks. They know us, they're comfortable with us. We've typically built their home. They don't worry about us going in when they're, in the Bahamas. Yeah, exactly.
I could see the app, helping there as well, right? Homeowner, whatever. I mean, even a light bulb goes out in a ceiling that's 30 feet tall. It's not, they're not going to pull out the ladder for that.
This is true.
Yeah.
And even we can evolve this too. I mean, service calendars can be installed inside this app. Account management, if they owe us money, if they want to pay a bill, if we want to market new products and services to them, we want to show them what they can and can't do. If they you just want to know, how do I get in touch with another trade that was on the job? Maybe that data is in this as well.
Does anyone have a proactive way to stay in touch with the clients after there's always the warranty work and that type of stuff, but is there any other offers that anyone out there makes to stay connected with the client other than a maintenance or a warranty item? Anyone ever think about an opportunity to generate revenue? Yeah. Right.
We take care of that. I got a big mouth. Then we take care of that, finding whether it be the IT guy, heating and air, whatever the case is. So I don't understand the benefit of having a third party, because I think to me, it sounds like you're separating the customer from the contractor.
A third party doing the work?
Being this system.
I think that the piece that's missing right now is that it won't necessarily be a third party. There's going to be a tool that you'll use to plug your data into. So this contact will be directly to you, the builder. This will just be a tool that's at your disposal.
Yeah, I think that the different scenarios that I've seen others talk about is it's a tool that the builder owns, and you will get the call for things that you want to get a call for. And if there's a short circuit or something that the homeowner can go directly to the person who can solve a specific problem, maybe the AV issue, you could get alerted. It could go right to the person that can instantly solve the problem. So it's more about just a communication hub. I don't think it was, I haven't heard anyone meant to like disconnect the builder from the client. But again, it's all, I think it's ideation right now, and it's more of getting feedback from progressive builders on the value of it.
There's some real products out there that are doing this now, or elements of this now. It's starting to evolve, but I think it's a tool that we all should pay some attention to, because it's coming, and I think it'd be good for everyone's business.
So I've got a few questions, but I wanted to open it up to the group if anyone had any specific questions about challenges you've had, opportunities that you see, or any other questions for Sean or Rich.
I have the microphone now. Gentlemen, I wanted to know, how soon do you bring your guys in to start the programming when you're getting to this house? When do you bring them in? We've had difficulty with our integrator living in the house with the owner for 3 months after they've moved in. And we're trying to solve that problem ourselves. I'm trying to get those rooms, those AV rooms cleaned and just turn that whole room over to them sooner. What have you guys done or seen, or are you in the same shape we are where there's an integrator that wakes up with breakfast every day with the owner while they try to get these things programmed?
I'm not going to lie, I've done that before, but it's been a long time. So our process, our design and engineering department is actually design, engineering, and programming. So when we design a control system, whether it's Lutron or Savant or Crestron or what have you, that programming is done at that same time. So we build all, as long as we can physically transport it, we build all of our racks and wire all our racks in their shop. So the house is wired, the wires are tagged and labeled based on our engineering diagrams and documents. The program is written at that time. So we actually have programming for systems that are 6 to 12 months out, ready to implement. And that gets us about 85 to 90% of the way there. So once the system's connected, the wires are hooked up, we test and troubleshoot and debug the program. We're not there for 3 months, we might be there for 3 days. And the last week or so, the last week of that is probably customization for the client, not so much programming. It's more of a configuration. So if your integrator is not doing that now, suggest it. It's not something they can't do. It's just something they don't do. It's a good idea for any integrator to consider if they're doing bigger jobs.
Some of the programming back in my day, it was like you'd hand the system over and let someone live with it for 30 days. Because a lot of the challenges are the homeowner doesn't really know what they want, and they say, let's do this, and they go, I don't like that. Come back and change it. So is that still a process where they live with it for a bit, then you come back, label the keypads, set the lighting scenes based on them using the house a bit?
Personal preference for me, no. And control systems are different now than they used to be. So a lot of these things are sort of pre-programmed. Elan is like that, Control 4 is like that, Savant's like that, Crestron Home, their versions like that. You're playing inside their sandbox. So it's got to be programmed a particular way. So there's not a lot of customization to be done. Yeah. So we try, and I think we really can get it 90+% of the way there. And if they did a good demo at the beginning, they know what they're getting. The custom stuff, like what the path of lighting does down the hallway, that's a different conversation. But the apps have gotten better. So once we set it up, they can make that change on their own if they're savvy. And if not, we don't have to get a programmer with a laptop out to connect. We can pull out an app and do it while we're talking to them.
I also know a good and confident integrator will tell homeowners when they shouldn't do something, because they've learned from experience that might sound good, but in reality, that kind of smart anticipatory events piss you off. So don't do that, right? So that's the other end.
You mentioned lighting keypad programming, and words of advice for you all, if you do lighting control systems, don't wait for your clients to move in with blank keypads and then get them engraved after the fact. Engrave them. The button programming is different than it used to be. You're not going to have a single button for every single light in the house anymore. You shouldn't. If your installer is still doing that, that's probably a bad way to do it. My suggestion is that you have your integrator, your designer, your programmer all think this through, build out the keypads, build out the engraving report, share it with the client to make sure they like the font, that the spelling's right, that they like the names that are on the buttons. That they might not want to call it the living room, maybe it's the family room or the playroom or what have you. But once they kind of sign off on that document, order the engravings, get them early, and get them on the wall. You can get a replacement engraved plate. Well, reserve that. If you buy these fancy Lutron Elise brass keypads, you can't. So you might want to hesitate on that one a minute. But most of the plastic keypads that are engraved, you can get a replacement faceplate for $20, $30, $40, depending on the manufacturer. And you're going to replace maybe 10% in the house, maybe, if that. So it might be a $300 or $400 investment at the end of the day to upgrade some keypad engraving down the road. But you have a much happier client when the button says what it does when they move in that day, instead of a bunch of blank buttons on the wall that they're just kind of hitting and saying, why did I pay for this lighting system that doesn't do anything, or I don't even know what it does.
Yeah. And any other questions?
Yeah, this guy works for Lutron, and I got a bone to pick with you guys because you put me in that boat right now too. Yeah, so to his point,
What he's saying is you get your order in early enough, Sean.
we ordered keypads in January. I'm sorry, modules in January that are coming in July, and that's fast, I was told. So, yeah.
One last question I have, which I have pushed in the past, and I don't know if it works, but does anyone out there, you too, Rich, do you put technology allowances in there like you do for other categories? Are you starting the conversation? Does that help start the conversation earlier? Like, we've already thought about 5 TVs, and here's your budget.
100% correct.
That?
Yes.
Anyone else do that? Okay, good. Because I think that is that a helpful way to get that call with you? Because they know they've got money that they're going to spend with you. Now it's like, let's talk about it, and then you go from
Yeah.
there.
In fact, it's so important that we have a cost guide, and I'll give it to any of you. If you want it, just email me or send me a message or call me or send me a telegram. We actually have a cost per square foot calculation for every discipline that goes into a house. So if you want to know how much to estimate for a lighting control system or some motorized shades or what have you, you can use this I think it's 3 or 4 pages worth of stuff. It'll explain what it is and roughly what it should cost. There's a range there. My suggestion is you just kind of nail it right in the middle. Because the high range is usually too high and the low range is too low. So just take the middle value and the square foot cost per square foot, and you'll have a good budget for your client to get started. And I'd put it in all of your discussions or have it in all of your discussions with your customers.
Yeah, I would add that. Yes, we do, but it's also extremely important to be as close to accurate with that as possible.
Okay.
Because, Sean will tell you, you can manage expectations the wrong way.
Yep.
You can either underestimate it or way overestimate it, and it can either be a point of frustration that you didn't tell them it was going to be enough money,
Yep.
or create a fracture in the trust when you try to overestimate. So,
All right.
Sean's got that, I would say.
Perfect.
Have at it.
Got to figure it out. All right. So it's 4:02. First of all, gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate all the insights. Thanks for the good questions and all.